This is The Final Word Daily, the Australia-India Daily. Geoff Lemon and Bharat Sundaresan at the Woolly Mammoth Stadium, the Woolen Gabba. The show's brought to you by Maurice Blackburn, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. If you're a plaintiff, they're the one for you. Bharat, here we are. Before the Woolen Gabba test, before the Brisbane test, it's a strange old thing coming to Brisbane these days. Can't wait to get you to the Gabba, all that stuff, all the mystique, all the 30 whatever years it was of Australia couldn't lose a test here. And then they've lost 2 of the last 4. They got beaten by West Indies earlier this year. Shamar Joseph did them in.
Yes.
And they got beaten by India 4 years ago. And in between times, they had that 2-day test against South Africa where they lost 4 wickets chasing 30 at the end and could so easily have lost that as well. It could have been 3 from 4. They had their sticky moments against England here. So the last 4 years haven't been easy for Australia at the Gabba, and it feels like a different vibe up here. It's not the threat it once was.
No, the Gabba's lost its tour. Where is the tour? I mean, that would be a great story if someone can find the tour. The Hawk tour. Well, the Hawk tours everywhere from whatever I consume on social media or what I'm forced to consume on social media. But you're right. It has lost. It's almost like the Undertaker in the last few years at WrestleMania. Once he lost to Brock Lesnar, once the streak was over, you're like, yeah, okay, you're 21-1. Like, what's next, Taker? And that's what it feels like. It feels like yet another test match, right? That's what it feels. You know, it's going to be hot. The last
it's
place
hot.
it is, and the last place I wanted to come to after losing my sunnies. So your sunnies look fantastic, by the way. And
I have a pair of sunnies for you in the bag because we've got the Glenn Maxwell
That
T20
is
Vision partnership at the moment. You can get 10% off the sunglasses that Glenn Maxwell himself was a part of approving and designing. They look pretty good, and I mean, you're a host on the show, so you should have a pair. I should have brought one down for you, but I've got some upstairs.
Oh, lovely. Can't wait to put on a pair of those. And this is another thing you do hear a lot in Brisbane. Ambulances and police cars.
Okay.
We're in that part of the country, and this is not the first one that's going past. This is probably the 20th that has gone past the Woolen Gabba today. And there was a time when there were ambulances heading towards the Woolen Gabba because Australia were running roughshod over all opposition teams, but doesn't happen anymore.
Terrible segue.
I thought of it. It sounded clever here,
clever.
but by the time it came out, it wasn't that good. But you're right. But the pitch has looked green for the last few days, and there will be a lot of talk about the pitch, as there always is at the Gabba.
It's not going to be that dangerous, though, is it? I mean, like you see, it looks green and then it bats nicely. That's usually the way.
And also, just going back to those 3 tests you mentioned, the one that India won was in January, the one that West Indies won earlier this year was in January, and the South Africa one was mid-December, when it was a pretty unplayable pitch, and it was over in a day and a half. Batting wasn't easy, surviving on that wasn't easy. So we don't know what to expect. It's the first normal December test match, you can say, because the one prior to that was the COVID test match against against England. So it's been a while since we've come to the Gabba for a normal December test match, where, I mean, there will be talk about the pitch, but there'll be more focus on the cricket.
Yeah. I mean, it just feels like a normal week in a way. We're at a point in the series where normal service has resumed. You know, Australia got smashed, then they smashed India. Everybody smashed everybody once. Very different ways of smashings, different styles of smashings. But like we talked about after Adelaide, the pink ball thing, it's hard to extrapolate anything from that onto something else. I don't know. What's your read? What's your vibe? What are your waters telling you when you've been watching the teams train here over the last couple of days? You've been watching them in the nets. Virat Kohli gave a long address to a circle of players down on the field here at one stage. I don't know what he was talking about, but he wasn't super animated, but he was talking for quite a long time. Maybe it was about Brisbane and how to approach it. I don't know. Could have been about something not cricket related altogether, but they were all gathered around in a circle. The Indian team seemed pretty chipper in their training. Although they couldn't hit the bloody targets, they were doing the throw the ball at a range of objects kind of drill, and nobody could hit anything until Rohit Sharma kind of cruised out of the lineup and pinged one down, and it felt like it had been a really long time. Anyway, I've rambled on, but what's your sense of it?
Yeah, and the first time Virat is playing at the Gabba in 10 years. The last time he played, Josh Hazlewood made his test debut. That's how long it's been.
5?
He did take 5, yeah. Mitchell Johnson made a crucial 60-odd, 70-odd and took the game away from India. The address you mentioned earlier, Virat Kohli to the Indian team was long, but his stint in the net was longer because Virat Kohli is not Steve Smith or Manas Labuschagne, who likes to spend a lot of time in the nets, but he was there pretty much from start to finish on both days that he's been here. He had a long stint at the Adelaide Oval as well on what should have been day 5. So he's clearly, I wouldn't say worried, but he's stressing over his technique and how he's combating the way he's got out. Because yes, he made the second innings 100 in Perth, but the 3 times he's got out on either side of that has been outside that off stump where he just goes with hard hands. And he's got out to different bowlers as well. Hazelwood in the first innings in Perth, then Stark, and then Boland. And especially the way Scott Boland set him up. We can see it's playing on his mind, so I'm really keen to see how he goes. And his number 4 counterpart is the same. Steve Smith's been working on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think that you will see him, not very exaggerated, but I think he's trying, from what I saw, he's trying to open the left leg a little more. He's trying to, the way he got out, just strangled down the leg side. You can look at it and say, oh, it is unfortunate, but that is Steve Smith's scoring area. And we spoke a lot about him in Adelaide. So he needs to score, and I'm personally surprised he's not got a big score yet, because in the lead up to this summer he looked to be in prime form. His hands and head, legs and hands, everything and head seemed to be in order, and I still think it could be the summer of Smith, even though we still have 3 tests to go. So it's the battle of the number 4s, isn't it? In what could be the final time ever.
Yeah, and it's an odd one to, like, not so odd for Kohli, who has been struggling for a longer period, but Smith hasn't dominated teams for years now, and I think there's this odd sort of thing with Smith, which maybe I'll talk about it more length another time, but where people always see him in the context of the 4.5 years when he was absolutely on top of the world, and he hasn't been that player for a long time. But it still feels odd to say that Steve Smith needs a score. I mean, he's not going to get dropped if he makes a couple of low scores here, but just in terms of the aura, of the presence, of feeling like a threat to India, he does need a score.
He does, and the series needs Steve Smith to get a big score, and he needs a big score for his own sake, to get himself in that zone. Because Australia, don't forget, they have 3 tests against India to go. Then they have 2 tests immediately after in Sri Lanka in very different conditions, and he'll want to make the most of these 5 tests and potentially a World Test Championship final. So there is a lot of Test cricket ahead for Australia. His focus will be on this series, but what I said earlier, just the fact that he is in such a good frame of mind with his batting is another reason why he'd want a big score. Because there have been summers where he hasn't found his hands and his legs. And he's battled through. He's been patchy, but he seriously does look so good right now. He has looked good coming into matches. So I do think there's a big score around the corner. I'm not going to stick my neck out like I did for Manas before the Adelaide test, but I have a strong feeling it's coming. But I think, it's again, there's so much focus on the 2 batting groups for good reason. Going back to what you said earlier about who has the upper hand, India have had 3 collapses to Australia's 2, right? So India had 3 big collapses. The fact that Nitish Kumar Reddy is top scored in 3 out of those 4 innings, red ball and pink ball, kind of tells you that a batting group which came to Australia under pressure after their failures against New Zealand in very different conditions still have a lot of boxes to tick before they feel confident into this series.
Right. And Josh Hazelwood, we've seen him bat. He's did a bowling fitness test. We don't have the team as yet, but safe to say that if he's ruled fit, he'll slot straight back into the 11, and that'll be the only change.
Yeah, very much so. Even if he's 95% fit, we spoke about Hazelwood earlier, made his debut here 10 years ago. What a career he's already had. But he's missed those test matches in that 18-month period, didn't he? So even 95% fit, like he comes in, he will want to play. Australia will want him to play for what Scott Boland did in Adelaide. You expect that from him. I think Hazelwood should come back. And for India, well, there was all these questions.
Let's come to them in a second. Because we're
always in a hurry.
I know, you always want to do the next thing. Hazelwood's averaging, I think, 13 this year with the ball as well, which is crazy. Yeah. But we'll have a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about India. It is the Final Word Daily. The show is brought to you also by the Kabaddi tournament that's happening in Melbourne on the 28th of December. I've been watching Kabaddi highlights today, Bharat, because I wanted to be more learned about what's actually going on. And it is pretty intense. It's like competitive tag, like you said, but tag where you can also get nailed into the ground as the tagger. You've got to get in there and tag. people, and once you tag them, they can't tackle you. But if they can approach you from a different angle and tackle you without getting tagged, there's a lot of ankle grabbing. There's a lot of like lunging at the ankle, and then like there's 5 or 6 dudes all pile in from different angles and smash someone to the ground, and the person getting smashed to the ground is trying to tag into the other half. If they can tap the ground in their half of the court,
correct.
then they get away with it. So I feel like I know more about Kabaddi now, and I want to see some professional athletes from another tackling and wrestling sport, as in some recently retired Aussie rules footballers, are going to be involved in this Kabaddi tournament. It's at John Cain Arena. It's across the road from the MCG. It'll be very easy for us to go there.
Very much so. It is the most macho sport you can find. It's got a bit of wrestling, tag. And
there's that Italian one where they throw the ball, but then they just beat the shit out of each other. That might be up there as well.
Up there as well. It's but it is real. It's real physicality, and it's a lot of, and like I said, back in the day it used to be played on mud courts. Now it's a little more professional, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like you will never get bored at a Kabaddi match.
Okay, yeah, they look like sort of hard courts, like those handball courts or something, but they must have a bit of give in them because people are getting slammed into the ground a fair bit, which you wouldn't necessarily want. You wouldn't necessarily want to be playing it, but you can watch it.
You can watch it. Yeah.
28th of December. Get involved. Now, the Indian side, what do you think they're thinking? I mean, do they shuffle some things around? How do they structure a bowling attack? What do they do with all their all-rounders? You mentioned Nitish Kumar Reddy and how he's top scored a bunch. So he basically has to keep playing just for the runs that he's making, even though he's notionally there as more of a seam bowling all-rounder, but he's been a batting all-rounder in this Indian side, and then how does that affect everything else around him?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, his runs have created a quandary for the Indian selectors, or the coaching staff anyway, who pick the teams. Because now, like you said, you can't drop him because he's been so consistent with the bat, and he's looked good for more runs. Unfortunately for him, he's been left to bat with the tail in all 3 of those innings where he's made 41, 42.
Yeah, imagine what he could do if he's batting 5 and he was coming in, at 3 down and had some top order colleagues to work with.
Exactly, and so I think he keeps his place in the side. I'll be surprised if Harshit Rana doesn't get a break. Just watching the proceedings in the nets, Akash Deep seems to be primed for a return, in my opinion. He probably should have played the pink ball test. And he's also someone who hits the pads a lot. So he's slower than everybody else. So he could come in and play that Scott Boland role. If he can just keep bashing the ball on that length, he's skiddy as well. And someone who hits the stumps. India did not bowl enough deliveries that would have hit the stumps in Adelaide, and they paid for it, especially during that first evening when Manas Labuschagne and Nathan McSweeney blunted their attacks. So I think he would come in my opinion. Apart from that, the big question will be where Rohit bats. It would be quite unfair on KL Rahul if suddenly, the tap on the shoulder comes and says, I'm not feeling comfortable. I know you're great at the top of the order right now, but no, you need to drop down. I can't see Rohit go down that road. And who knows, a day test match against the red ball, Rohit in the middle order, if the openers give him a start, it could well be exactly what India need in the middle. So, and then the other question mark would be Ashwin or one of the other spinners. Seeing what Jadeja has done in the nets, I don't think it's going to be Jadeja. So it could again be a toss-up between Ashwin and Washington Sundar. Ashwin was facing Morni Morkel, who, by the way, still got it. He was bowling off 17 yards, but he was bowling bouncers at R. Ashwin, and I was very impressed with Morni. So if Ashwin is facing bouncers a couple of days or day before the test match, you would think he's in. But this is Indian cricket, you never know. But Jasprit Bumrah's fit, the most important thing.
Where's Tim Payne? That's the point, because he said, can't wait to get you to the Gabba, and then Ashwin didn't play at the Gabba because he buggered his back and he was crawling around his hotel room all night. So, finally Tim Payne will have got him to the Gabba, although...
Maybe Tim Payne will be flown
I
in.
hope he flies in.
I
hope he flies in to provide a welcoming committee, like a one-man guard of honour. Something like that.
And what about Washington Sundar's dog, who was, the puppy was named Gabba 4 years ago. So Gabba would be sitting in front of the television hoping that his master, Washington Sundar, plays the game at the Gabba.
That's it.
Yeah, spare a thought for Gabba as well.
Who was decisive here last time, Washington Sundar, with bat and ball when he was making those contributions in that memorable game. So hopefully we have another memorable one. We shall find out. Thanks to CBUS Super as well, who help present the show. They don't prevent the show, they enable the show.
They prevent other things.
They prevent other things like not having enough money in your retirement. So cbussuper.com.au, past performance, not a reliable indicator of future performance. All the stuff's in the show notes. Just find your Kabaddi thing, get your sunglasses, do all the things that you need to do. We have a long list of demands for you these days. But most importantly, watch the Final Word Daily or listen to the Final Word Daily once the test match is underway. We'll be with you every day. Find it on YouTube and hit the subscribe thing. Find it on your podcast apps and put it in your eardrums and share it around. Tell people that we're having a good time at the cricket and you can too. Geoff Lemon, Bharat Sundaresan. We'll see you next time.